This conference will now be recorded.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Crumick.
Here.
Councilmember Swift.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Legero is absent, excused, and Mayor Alves.
Here. All right, well, we're up and running. Looks like we're gonna drift down here, let's see, quickly down to the consent calendar. And it's, these items are considered routine in nature and act upon a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. So is there anyone out there who has any objections to the consent calendar, whether you're here or on the phone?
Mayor Alves, regarding item number 2, I'll be abstaining from voting on section 74947.
I'll accept a motion for the ballot.
I want to pull item 3.
Item 3 is going to be pulled. Okay, so that leads us down to 1 and 2. Do I have a motion for 1 and 2?
Motion for 1 and 2?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Let's talk about number 3.
Yeah, I just want to know what's that all about?
So when somebody makes a claim on the city for some kind of reimbursement for losses or damages, we typically send it to our Risk Management Association. They make an evaluation of it and let us know. This case is a customer was put, the requester was put into custody, claims that we lost their phone and was asking to be reimbursed for that.
Like the city lost their phones?
Yes, well, the officers did during custody,
Oh.
but it was never taken into evidence, and we went back and reviewed, and based on recommendation from our Risk Management Association, our liability insurance, they recommend we reject the claim.
I was just curious what it was.
Sure.
Okay, I'll accept the motion for number 3.
I move for accept number 3.
Do I have a motion and second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Okay, let's move on to staff communication.
So before the council, or included in your agenda packet tonight was the treasurer's report, police department report, animal control, development services, building department, public works, water department, and a project report, all for February. If you have any questions on those, I can answer those. I do have some other staff communications I'd like to share with the council. Any questions on our monthly
Gentlemen, do we have
reports?
any questions for staff? We're good, Peter? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to let the council know our vaccination clinic that we administered 365 doses of the first dose. And then they will be doing the second dose on March 27th again.
How many
at
did you have the
community
first time,
center.
please? How many the first time?
365.
Wow, good job. Is that any age group?
Well, it initially was primarily 65 and older, farm workers, emergency response, medical workers, childcare givers, teachers, any of those fell in there. Yeah, and then we did end up having some appointments that were made that didn't show up. So our officers actually went across the street to Heritage House, knocked on doors, and got about 6 or 8 people over from Heritage House.
Perfect.
They also went out to some of our restaurants and our grocery store to let them know that they were eligible for the shots also.
What
So
kind did we give?
Pfizer. So if we tried to utilize, there was a total of 402 doses. They stopped opening vials so they didn't waste those doses so they could be used at another event. But we were rounding up people towards the later afternoon, so.
How are you for volunteers, and how's the outlook for volunteers on the 27th?
So we'll probably need about I would say 3 or 4 volunteers again. I know your one Lions member that showed up has already told me he would be able to come again. Brian did, so But yeah, so I don't have details of the hours. Last time they told me the event was going to be 10 to 5 and then it ended up being 10 to 6. We actually ended up there till 8 o'clock, but trying to administer
Who
those.
facilitated the shots?
It went through the county who enlisted help with a company called HR Support. So HR Support came out, managed all of the workers and the administration of it, and the county supplied them with the doses. And then I had sent an email out to the council about potentially visiting the new bathrooms in regards to our Prop 68 grant. I have until June to get in a viable project, and I just know it's going to slip away from me. So if you're interested, let me know. I do have Mantika or Tracy that can set up a couple of visits.
Is that for the community center?
Yeah, for the park, the community center park there. Yeah.
The bathroom, the new bathroom.
We do it.
Actually replace it.
It's a modular. They take the other one.
Yeah. And they did give me an option too for a slightly bigger one, which we can address when we get ready to.
What are the square footages on both of them?
I don't have the square footages in front of me. One is almost an exact duplicate of what's out there.
Okay.
And then the other one is just slightly larger and has like a smaller, or
500 square, 600 square feet.
a little bit bigger storage area. And I think it has like 2 extra stalls.
I have a question on that. Are they going to be like male and female bathrooms, or are they going to be sort of you know what I'm saying?
So there's gonna be male and female, and there'll be one family non-gender bathroom.
So you'll have 3 sort of things.
Yeah.
instead of
3
2.
portholes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of size, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we are planning to reopen City Hall on this Wednesday, March 17th. I anticipate tomorrow that we will be authorized to go to the red tier. And our numbers in the county, we actually, 2 of our matrix actually met orange tiers, but the testing matrix, how many are testing positive per 100K is off. So you'll probably see the county putting out more information about getting tested to try and offset those numbers. I think the state adjusted them slightly. I anticipate with vaccines going out more and more, they're going to have to adjust them even more or take that matrix out of there. And then I just wanted to follow up. We had spoke before about a workshop for senior housing and in lieu fees. And my thought is that we should be doing that on a non-council night. And I didn't know if the council had a preference of when that should be happening, like a particular day of the week or in March or April, or what thought process is on that.
Is it off Monday from council meeting?
We could do that. Yeah. So like for March, there's March 22nd is too soon, but the 29th, or in April, you could do the 12th.
I'd say as soon as possible.
Yeah, the last Monday in March. What did you say, the 29th?
29th.
Me too. I'm good.
6 o'clock, okay for that workshop?
Okay. Yeah. Be sure we invite Ann Shattuck.
Yes.
She wants to bring some friends of hers and give us an idea what they're interested in.
Well, it's nice that there's going to be a senior fund lunch event this Wednesday too. So.
Over to the.
Yeah.
We're pretty quick.
Yeah, we can get that out there before then, that'd be great.
Okay, and so then another workshop for April 5th, 6 o'clock for a company called Chamber Nation. They actually reached out to our mayor, and they basically are a tool for our businesses to help increase their their business for advertising, and it puts together a nice little app for people that come into town. They can text a number, get restaurants, they can get all kinds of different information.
What time? On
That would be April 5th at 6 o'clock. And they'll come in and do a presentation about what their program is, and then the council can, make some kind of decision of move forward or what we want to do with that.
And why would it pertain to us versus, Chamber or Yelp or anything like that?
Well, typically it's most commonly it would be a Chamber of Commerce that would do this. I just think that they found that our chamber wasn't as active as some, and so they came to the city. So there is,
They need permission within a municipality in order to.
Well, there would be some, there's some costs involved with it.
Okay. Would we be basically the source of information for them?
We would be a source of information for them for sure. It would be businesses within town.
Okay.
Yeah. So last Friday, I had a phone call with USDA regarding our wastewater treatment plant and NG and them taking our project forward. There's no real way that we can move forward with NG at this point. Well, for one, NG is not willing to do the engineering designs and plans for us to go out to bid. They wanted to do it start to finish. So basically I did get a call from NG today saying they don't think that they're going to be able to go any farther in that process. So what we need to do now is I need to put together a request for proposal or for qualification, and we would utilize PACE's master plan design that they did to put together that RFP to go out and solicit to hire an engineer to do the design and the plans that would make us ready to go out to bid for construction.
Excuse me one second. On April 5th, is that Easter Monday?
It is.
So are we still going to do the meeting?
I was planning on it.
I just don't know if that's going to deal with a lot of people that are a holiday because it's religious. I don't know.
The day after Easter. I mean, if we want, we can do.
I mean, I don't personally care. I'm just suggesting there might be people out there that consider that a sacred day not to be at meetings. I don't know.
The day after Easter?
It's April.
Good Friday.
Because April 4th is Easter.
Oh, then why does it say Easter Monday on my calendar?
I don't know.
Okay, it's just on the Google Calendar.
Holy Week and everything.
Okay, so it's not the actual holiday.
No,
Then
no.
that's fine. Okay. You just got to get it down right.
So we would go out, do the proposal. I'm going to try and get our contract engineer to assist me with that proposal process. And USDA has provided me with a couple of contacts to go through it to make sure that we have everything in place so that we can get reimbursed for those costs in that process.
But then Angie's had to have gone through this before then.
They have not did it, they haven't did a USDA financing before, no.
Oh, okay, it's financing, that's what.
Yeah, it's the financing side of it, yeah.
Well, now,
So-
can they bid it?
That's not typically something that they would bid.
Gotcha.
But then again, I don't know, they could.
So what,
Because they can't be, they can't be involved in the process of putting it out for the qualifying proposals in order to bid.
gotcha. So regarding the treatment plant, what are we at this point on the hook for then, Angie?
We're not, because our agreement was that they were doing that at no cost.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so we
So-
are not on the hook for anything, for any of the work that they did at this point.
So whatever entity comes up and wants to bid on this RFP, they're gonna need to adapt PACE's plans. Or are they just gonna be, they don't have to do any planning themselves, right? They're just gonna be working on PACE's plans.
Right, they're gonna be doing the engineering design of it, so
Okay,
that they have the engineer plans for a contractor to come in and build it.
okay, so.
Because then once the engineer does all of the design plans, then you have to go out for the contractor to bid on the
And this is
document.
because of the USDA's funding.
Yeah, well, that's the typical way that most projects are done. Like we typically, like a street project or most of our water projects, it's engineered through our contract engineer, then it goes out for the competitive
Yeah,
bid.
yeah.
We don't have engineers on staff to be able to engineer the wastewater treatment plant,
Right.
therefore we have to do this larger project, go out for it. The sewer lift station was similar. We put a proposal out. We used Blackwater out of Modesto to design, and then we put it out for bid for the construction side of it. And then typically the engineer that designs it follows through and does the inspections during the construction.
So Pace's study was, what did it cost, 70 grand?
65, something right in there,
And
yes.
that was just a study, that wasn't a design or anything.
It was not a full design, no.
Is it something that Pace could come back if we put it out?
So if Pace wanted to follow through and do the complete designing of it, doing all the engineering of the project, they can respond to my request for proposals.
And then with that study, since we're on the topic, have we since taken that study to the wastewater treatment plant and showed it to them and discussed with them how it applies to the city and their role in that? Has that happened yet?
To who at the wastewater treatment plant?
Not to the, I'm sorry, I'm talking across the street now.
We did have a meeting with Pace and them when we got that study back.
Nothing's really come of it as of yet.
Well, no, because then we had NG who was doing their legwork at no cost to us, so we haven't really had any additional talks after that.
Okay, we don't need to get into the weeds on that. I think it would be important to keep on that.
Sure. Yeah. Staff will be starting budget this month for our next fiscal year. And then as I emailed all the council, recreation has had a dire need for coaches this year. We are still needing 2 for T-ball, 3 for rookies, and 3 for minors. So we still need 8 coaches, which is better than the 16 coaches that we needed on Friday. So, but we're gonna need those. And this is the head coaches. It's not just assistant coaches, it's head coaches that we need. So we're gonna need those by this week in order to start the season in some of those divisions.
So what do? Do you just not start the season with those coaches, or do you, you're not gonna?
How do you do that? You can't,
No.
you can't, I mean, so that's our dilemma. Like hopefully for T-ball, we have 2 more coaches. Hopefully we could do that because, I mean, how do you decide which kids don't play?
Do you have teams made up already?
No.
So that's just a random group of kids right now with no teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if you had your teams picked, who picks the teams, the coaches?
So depends upon the division. T-ball, we typically, it's done in-house for T-ball and rookies this year. For minors, there will be a coaches draft, but there are no evaluations this year.
I was just thinking if you had teams, at least you know who was available for coaching.
But how do you,
Pick a team? I don't know.
well, and that's the
Draw 'em out
problem.
of a
Everybody that's been signed up has been notified that we need these
But
coaches.
if you drew teams even out of the hat, and then you had this set of people here and go to the parents that are directly involved with that team and say, look, we can have a team this year, but we need a coach now.
So I guess but that's the problem though. Then you go like, okay, so these other people that happen to get placed on teams, then they don't have to step up because there happens to be a coach. I don't know.
Well, somebody's gonna have to step up.
Right,
I'll
well,
tell you,
and what happens if nobody doesn't?
Then they don't have a team.
They don't have
But
a
I
team.
guarantee if you pick teams, one of those parents is not gonna let the team go down. I doubt it.
You know, I've got to concur with you completely because it's been done just like that in the past. And there has been, for lack of a better phrase, come to Jesus meetings with a group of parents to say, guys, here's where we're at. We need somebody from here to step up. And, or else this team cannot play. And, they've got to realize that there's coaching material out there on every team. They just don't realize it, that they can actually do that. And the other thing it tells us, whoever does step up, the rest of you who don't, you will forever hold your peace. Yeah, don't complain. And yeah, that's happened
Which
before.
division is it that's drafting players or selecting players?
The minors.
The minors select their players?
Mhm.
That's where you're gonna have a problem, because who's gonna, in their steed, pick kids?
Right.
Or is it gonna be the leftovers of what they didn't want from the other 4 or 6 coaches? Somebody's gotta stand in place that knows the kids enough to try and come up with a couple teams. Sounds like there's 3 coaches right now that we need for that division.
Correct.
You
Yeah,
got 3 teams worth of kids right now that nobody's selecting players.
right.
Mhm.
So that's a
So
problem.
that one would be a difficult one. I'm not sure how many are in that division, but if we only have 4 teams in that division, if you only have 1 coach,
The whole division is done.
yeah, I mean,
If that's the case, then it's a random selection other than the coach's kid that doesn't want to coach. He gets his kid, the neighbor's kid, and their team. Everything else is random draw.
yeah.
There's no more selection process. You
Yeah,
can
you
really
have to do
select.
So the girls teams, I believe, these are, the rookies and the minors are both boy teams, I believe, that need the coaches. I think the girls, we've gotten coaches on. So,
So
they've
get
all
rid of the
stepped
draft, and if you're a coach, you get your kid and
That's it.
one other
Yeah,
kid, and the rest
different
is
situations.
random selection.
Yeah.
I think that's what it boils down to.
yeah.
And then you're gonna have to have, like Robert said, to come to Jesus meeting with the team.
Step up, man.
Someone steps up, or these kids don't play.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, long-winded tonight, but that's all I have. Dominique, do you have?
Well, where do
something?
we leave this thing? I mean, we're gonna,
Well, we're gonna play the week out and see where we go.
let's see how many more coaches step up.
Yeah, because the other thing is once somebody steps up to coach, you have to have them fingerprinted, they have to clear
Oh, that's the other
fingerprinting.
stuff too, yeah.
Yeah, they have to do a concussion training now these days. So we have to have them step up to do that. But if we at least know we have teams, we can get the uniforms together and get that ball rolling. But a coach will have to wait to practice or get their team's information until all of that's cleared.
And I think the real strong selection is, you're right, you put those teams together, especially in the older division. That's might be what you have to do, and some of the best coaches that I think we've ever known were signed up reluctantly, and then they end up coaching for 10 years. So,
Didn't realize how much they enjoy it, right?
no, exactly. Tell them that.
All
So
right,
how old are the minor kids? How old are they?
10, 11, I believe, or 11, 12, 10 to 12, somewhere in there.
And then the rookies are how old?
8, 9, 7, 8, 9s.
Did you get a schedule finalized as far as like?
We
days
can't-
of the week?
We can't do a schedule until we know how many teams.
And how long's the season?
It's, our plan is to start beginning in May and end in June, hopefully mid-June,
So how many games do you think you'll have?
8 to 10 games per
8 to
team.
10 games. And during the weekend only, or
No,
week.
there could be some weeknights.
during the weeknights, what time do they start?
We haven't set that schedule yet.
Normally roughly what time?
Oh,
6,
5:30, I
5, 6.
think.
5:30.
Yeah.
That's gonna be tough for a lot of people getting home in time.
That's where you got an assistant coach.
Used
Yeah.
to work.
That's where you got an assistant coach that can come home, start the game early.
All right. So now anything else? That it?
That's all I have. Dominique may have
Go
some
ahead,
stuff.
Dominic.
I just have a few updates. The mayor and staff met with RHF, who's the property owner and property manager of Heritage House, and we had a really good meeting regarding senior housing and what the city of Escalon and the community is looking for. And so I think that would be great to discuss that in that workshop that we do at the end of March for senior housing as well. And we are also accepting applications for planning commission. They are out on our website, advertised on Facebook, and the deadline to submit is Monday, April 12th by 5 p.m. And there are 3 seats currently up for vacancy.
Have you had anybody sign up yet?
I've had 1 submitted so far.
Existing?
Correct.
Okay. And that's the April, what's the last date?
Monday, April 12th by 5 p.m.
By 5 p.m.
And if you go to the home page of our website and scroll down, we have the advertisement there where it has the deadline, the email if you wanted to email it in, or you could drop it in the front box. And also inquire about questions and information. But the form is right there on the front page.
All right. Any other thing, gentlemen, you want to discuss before we move on?
I think that's it.
Good, good, good. Okay, let's move to matters presented from the audience. Public address. The city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. Determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is discretionary decision by the mayor. All right, let's open up the public hearing. Anybody here want to talk on public hearing? Please come up and give us your name, please.
My name's Brandon Dodge.
Brandon Dodge, okay.
I live right over here on 1540 Crestwood, right next to Swanson Park.
Okay.
I'm one of the 2 houses that shares the town hall with the actual park.
Okay.
I actually have some packets here. I have one for each council member. So
Could we have them, please?
Yeah.
Sure. Any pictures in them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So the first page is pretty much the letter that I'm kind of going to read to you or kind of go over with you, and then I have pictures after that.
All right.
But like I said, I live right here at 1540 Crestwood. I'm one of the 2 houses that shares the sound wall with the actual Swanson Parks. Recently, I'm sure you guys are aware, or maybe not aware, that a baseball backstop was installed at the park. Pretty close to my residence, and by pretty close, I mean 30 feet. I contacted local city offices to find out what was going on because we woke up to a Wednesday of it being installed, didn't know anything about it. Talked to the neighbor behind me who also shares the sound wall. He had no idea what was going in. We both have some concerns with it being so close to our house. We were told that they were being installed possibly temporarily, but it wasn't guaranteed because they were trying to spread out the T-ball games and the Little League games across the town because not everybody can play at Hogan Park where they normally take place. And I was then redirected to Justin Collins. He got on the phone with me and told me that it was going to be strictly T-ball at Swanson Park, that a roof was going to be installed on the backstop, and that he could not move it or talk about moving it due to safety concerns, but he wouldn't really elaborate on what those concerns were. I'm a longtime resident. I grew up in this town. I went to high school in this town. I've been living in this house for 10 years, renting this house. I just purchased it 3 weeks ago. I understand, you know, living next to a park was one of the reasons why we decided to purchase this house. Me and my wife, we're living in Stark family. We're excited to have a park next to it. We just didn't expect a baseball backstop 30 feet from our backyard. I'm sure you guys are aware there's 9 parks in Escalon. 2 of them already had, Reed Manor and Brentwood already had backstops. They installed them in Shadowwood as well as Sanchez Park. The difference between these parks and Swanson Park is, number one, the backstops are quite far away from the rest of the nearest home. The closest one is 75 feet from a residence. I went out and measured with a tape measure. I have a 200-foot tape measure. We went exactly to where it was. They also, all those other parks are a sunken-in park. They all kind of slope down. They're away from the other residents. So they wouldn't have the same safety concerns possibly that I have. They also, none of them have roofs. And I was told that they would be installed on top of the backstop. So it kind of makes me weary that these roofs are not going to be installed on backstops. So my concerns, and I'll let you look at the pictures that I included, are the dangers of foul balls striking me and my family while we're in our backyard, causing us bodily injury, something that we definitely would be talking about some sort of lawsuit if one of us were to get injured due to a foul ball, or dangers of striking our house, doing damage to our window or roof tiles. I was told this week that actually they don't make the roof tiles in my house anymore. And so that's a little disconcerting if foul balls are gonna be cracking and breaking my roof tiles, causing it to leak. Something that I wasn't aware of that was gonna be installed when I bought my house. The amount of noise, people being that close to my house on Saturdays where they have games and things like that. We already have noise to the park that we understand and we're used to, but that's not 30 feet from my backyard. People climbing the wall to retrieve foul balls in my backyard, climbing over, entering my residence. People climbing the backstop to peer over the wall or through the window. If you look at the first page there, you can see the closeness of the backstop to our wall. The second picture is my bedroom window. That's a little disconcerting. I'm not against kids playing organized sports, people playing in the park. My dad owns a scuba shop here in town. We've donated multiple times to Parks and Rec. My siblings have played in local, community sports. It's not what we're against. I'm just against having a backstop 30 feet from my backyard and the dangers that may occur because of it. If you look at the rest of the photos, the second page there is an aerial view from the backstop to our residence. You can see how close it is. Page 3 is Brentwood Park. You can see the backstop, where it is and how it is close to the nearest home. It's 80 feet. The fourth page is Reed Manor. That's photos 6 and 7. It's 79.5 feet from a residence. And then you have Sanchez Park, which is 75. That's the next closest. It's on page 5. And then the 6th page is Shadowwood Park, where it's 95 feet from current residence. The last 2 photos are measurement, some compromises. Overall, I'd like to have the backstop removed completely. I feel that there's plenty of other places that could be done. There's 7 schools in this town that have backstops, or 7 different backstops spread across the schools. I don't know if that's something that you guys have access to. I know it's something you might have to go, SL Unified, and they probably won't. However, there's enough backstops, I feel, at all the other parks that you should be able to spread out enough games that it wouldn't have to be one at Swanson. There's a sunken grass area at Tracy and Shalane that looks like it would be big enough for a backstop. That's over there on the other side of Miller. Sanchez Park is one of the biggest parks. It's possible you could put one adjacent, counter adjacent as a diagonal. It's plenty of distance. But in compromise, I would just ask that the backstop be moved an additional 50 feet from where it is to the center of the park, so that it would be compliant with all of the other backstops in town and be away from my wall and my house. That's it.
Okay, staff, any comments?
Sure.
It's not on the agenda.
Oh, so I just,
Not on the agenda. Sorry.
but we can't respond to them basically. So well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can look into it and we'll get back to you on it.
Okay.
Are we allowed to comment on it at all?
No.
Can't respond?
Council member. No, this response can just be, we'll have staff look at it and respond accordingly.
Okay, so the gentleman speaking, it would be come back, we'll get it on the agenda in the next meeting.
Well, he could put it on, he could request it to be put on the agenda if he chose to, or the staff can get back to him and try to resolve the issue.
All right, well, I won't make any comments, but I think it would be good to get it on the agenda.
Well, okay. All right, so that's kind of where we're at with it.
Sure.
We've heard you. Thank you for the information. It's pretty clear.
I'd like to request to be on the agenda if no one gets back to me.
Well, I think you have to do that. How does he do that? Like come in and do it?
Typically, you submit in writing for that request, and then it's sponsored by a council member. approved by a
Okay, so
council
that's the
member,
route we have to take with that, okay?
which
Sure.
Chromix are.
All right, so grab a council member, get it on the agenda, and unless the staff from that time to the next time it comes back to us can resolve it.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Is there anyone
I
else?
will need somebody's copy of that packet though
Yeah,
too.
that's
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to speak this evening? Your first name, please, your name, please, is all we need. We don't need addresses.
Yeah, on that same subject, as he pointed out, there's a backstop at Shadowwood Park. Shadowwood Park's a landscape lighting district,
What's that?
and before you can theoretically add any kind of equipment out there, you need to get 51% vote to accept it by the residents. It was put out there, I never saw a notice, so I'm wondering if you should just remove it.
So that backstop, well, yeah, I'm not supposed to comment, but technically it's going to be part of the parks program, the recreation program. The backstop's not supported through the district.
we're not paying for it.
Correct.
If there's any damage caused by any play or what have you in there, that's going to be covered by the city.
Can't comment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
When this gets on the agenda, I would appreciate you addressing that issue. Who's going to have it there? And I guess we just look at it that the resident shouldn't be responsible for any damage that they didn't vote for installed in their district. So I just want to say that and piggyback on what you said. Thank you.
Okay, was there anyone else who'd like to speak this evening? Just your name, please.
Danny Fox, 1510 John. I just want to thank City Council, the staff, City Manager, getting on the McHenry project sidewalk replacement. I've had several comments from people riding the bike, walking, whether it be in a wheelchair or by foot or elderly. They're certainly appreciative of it. It's a good thing. And I've had several people tell me, come up to me and comment what a good job was done for businesses and people coming and going from the shopping center there. So I want to thank the council and give a shout out to Justin Collins and all the public works staff that was out there on the cold, windy mornings pouring wet cement and finish it off. So thank you.
We'd also do a little shout out and thank you to Ann Shattuck, who spearheaded part of that project. It was her determination and bring it to our attention how dear of a problem it was. And then staff picked up the ball and did a great job cleaning it up. Okay. Is there anyone else out there? Anybody on the phone would like to speak this evening? And having seen no one, we're going to bring it back to the council for council communications.
Actually, we got a public hearing.
Oh, shoot, darn it. I was hoping we'd go home. All right, public hearing. Here's consideration of expenditure plan for the City of Escalon year 2021-22 Community Development Block Grant Program. Staff.
Thank you. The city receives cdbg funds an estimated allocation of $75,000 on an annual basis from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, through an agreement with San Joaquin County. HUD requires citizen participation in the program selection process. This process involves providing residents with notice of availability of cdbg funds. This requirement was satisfied by posting notices at City Hall and on the city's website. We also posted advertisements on the Facebook page and sent out mailers to local nonprofits, inviting them to a virtual informational meeting that was held by staff on Monday, January 4th. In past years, all applications for cdbg funds were received directly by the city. San Joaquin County recently revised that program so that service groups that serve the entire county submit one application for funds to the county only instead of applying to each city individually. In that single application, the service group then lists their funding request for each city. This streamlines the process for the county since they process the reimbursements for the countywide service groups, which include Meals on Wheels, Mobile Farmers Market, and Fair Housing. 15% of that $75,000 allocation can be used towards the assistance of service groups. The county informed us that they received applications requesting funding from the City of Escalon from Fair Housing, Mobile Farmers Market, and Human Services Agency. These programs support Escalon residents either directly or indirectly, and the funds requested by the service groups this year totaled less than the $11,250 the city can offer, which is at 15%. Since the allocations are use it or lose it, staff is recommending awarding the service groups more than what they requested to fully expend that 15% allocation. The service groups have been contacted about the potentially larger award, and all have indicated that they can utilize the additional funds in Escalon if awarded it. The city is submitting one application for administration of the cdbg grant program. This public hearing is being held to receive comments from the public on the applications received for fiscal year 2021-2022, and for the city council to consider approving funding these programs. Staff recommends the available funds be approved and programmed as follows. For San Joaquin Fair Housing Program, they've requested $500. Staff is recommending $1,000 be allocated to the Community Housing Resource Board to continue the city's contribution to provide fair housing services to low, moderate income persons. This program meets the HUD national objective of addressing the needs of low and moderate income persons. The program services are provided to the community free of charge. The mission of San Joaquin Fair Housing is to ensure that all members of the community have equal access to safe, affordable housing and to eliminate any discrimination in housing. Staff refers residents with landlord and tenant issues and to fair housing for questions and assistance. This portion of the CDBG funds will be managed by San Joaquin County Fair Housing Association. And then this has been, actually, they just sent us a notice today advising us that in the past fiscal year, they had assisted 48 residents, totaling a household size of 155. And due to, the pandemic and things that have been happening this last fiscal year, they notified us that they have now served 86 residents with a total household size of 245 people, with still 3.5 months remaining in this fiscal year. For number 2, organizations that requested money for 2021, 2022, there's 2 service groups that submitted complete funding requests. The Human Services Agency is requesting $2,835 to support their Meals on Wheels operations for the city. Staff recommends the council consider approving an award of $4,625. Meals on Wheels delivers meals to homebound seniors 60 years plus. The funds requested will be spent on the purchase of meals, 5 frozen meals, along with fresh fruit and milk delivered once a week to seniors' homes. Council approved a similar request over the last few years. Although not requesting CDBG funding for it this year, the Human Services Agency will continue to provide meals to non-homebound seniors at the Escalon congregate site at the community center senior room. Additional funds will be used to offset a larger portion of meal costs. And then the Emergency Food Bank and Family Services of Stockton, San Joaquin is requesting $1,500 be allocated to their mobile farmers market program. Staff recommends the council consider awarding them $4,625. A specially equipped mobile farmers market vehicle staffed with a nutrition educator and assistant serve the care program once a month. They provide nutrition education through on-site cooking demonstrations that focus on healthy food preparation, appropriate serving size, and the role of diet in preventing disease and chronic health conditions, nutritional content of food items, and more. Upon conclusion of the presentation, participants receive 10 to 15 pounds of fresh produce. The monthly site visits are conducted in 1-hour increments. The additional funding would be used to add sessions or explore additional delivery sites in Escalon. The city usually receives $5,000 requests from the Second Harvest Food Bank to support their food assistance program, senior brown bag, and food for thought programs. Although Second Harvest did not submit an application this year, they do continue to provide the above mentioned services in Escalon. Staff is applying for one city application described below, which would be $1,000 allocated for the administration of the CDBG program. This funding reimburses the city for the costs expended on staff time, postage, advertising, and supplies related to administering the CDBG program in Escalon. The agency applications are available upon request for review. And then we do have a resolution to be adopted as a part of the public hearing. And if staff or if council has any questions.
Gentlemen,
Is there any service organizations within the city, like could be Lions, Kiwanis, Rotary, anybody?
We send the advertisement to all nonprofits in the city. However, the CDBG program does have specific regulations that are income based, and so there are a lot of agencies in the city that are nonprofit that might not be able to, if they don't have those type of programs, they wouldn't be able to apply.
well, the San Joaquin Fair Housing Program is not in Escalon anyway.
It isn't, but they do serve everyone in Escalon.
I understand, they're county.
Yeah.
Answer Peter's question. I think Peter thought everybody, no, it's county too. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Well, yeah, it's county as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and fair housing is actually, I think, because of the increase in the number of residents in Escalon that have contacted them this fiscal year, they actually, along with their letter today, they sent us flyers and brochures, which is something we have not received from them in the past. And so now we actually have something we can hand to somebody as opposed to writing down a phone number for them and forwarding that information to them. So I think they see there's a need.
Get more money than they asked for.
Yeah, we actually used to give them $1,000 a few years ago, but then when things changed, we dropped it down to 500 and now we're restoring it back to the 1,000.
So what gets you at the point you're at with this amount of money versus what they were getting? How did we arrive at that number?
We just doubled their request to get to that
2,000
15%.
yeah.
Yeah, they were requesting 500, we doubled it to 1,000. There's a maximum amount as indicated in the staff report where 15% can go towards programs.
Yeah, so
We want to make sure that our programs get that money, and if they don't spend it, that's one thing, but at least it's allocated to them so that they can spend it for those programs. Or else it goes back into the pot as use it or lose it.
So what kind of follow-up have we got? Do you actually attend any of these functions? Do you look at any of them? Do we know they exist? Do you know that we're getting done?
We know they exist. They do have a schedules throughout town. As staff, we haven't attended them in the past, but we do get updates,
I think it makes sense.
requested.
We
We
should
have
attend.
updated in the past. We have asked in the past, like the second Harvest Food Bank, they had stopped applying for it because it was just too difficult. Our amounts were too low, so they went to the county belt where they applied countywide and spill it down because it was easier that way for them. Because they're much larger than these other groups.
I've been to some of their functions.
Yeah.
Some of them are good. I haven't been to all of them, so I can't speak to all of them, but the ones I did
Yeah.
were pretty good.
Especially in the last few years, they've really put a lot.
So are you asking for a vote on this evening?
We have to have a public hearing to get any public input from the
All right.
community, and then, yes.
Well, let's open up the public hearing and see what we got. We're gonna open a public hearing. Is there anyone like to speak to this? Okay, we're not gonna spend a lot of time on that. Is there anybody on the phones who'd like to speak to this? Doesn't sound like it. We're gonna close that public hearing. We're gonna bring it back to the council.
Dominic, I go up one point, the Human Services Agency, we're talking about the, like the twice a week lunches at the community center, right?
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay, which I'm sure we're gonna have a return to that eventually.
Well, they've still been serving the meals.
Okay, yeah.
They just
I mean, where they-
modified
the
it.
community center, yeah. I've gone to some of those, and my understanding is that the Human Services Agency has a formula by which how many meals to bring out. And if that formula is a little on the low side, then if you have additional seniors coming in, they're kind of sort of out of luck, for that meal period. And I forget if they adjust the formula every quarter or every other month or something like that.
Yeah, because they go based on those that have signed up.
Right.
Came in, signed for the meals, and then if they go where they have people that have signed in and didn't get a meal, then they will increase it after, and I think quarterly
Right.
may be correct, but I think that we can ask them to evaluate it before
Well,
that.
That's exactly my point, because these are really inexpensive meals. And I know that the staff there has had a hard time. They'll have to end up scrambling and, trying to, because you have a senior coming in, and he's a 21st senior and you only have 20 meals. Well, I mean, it puts you in a bind.
Yeah.
And
I
so-
think we provide a few extras just in case.
few,
We have had it come
very
up
few.
before.
I
They
suppose
requested us to increase, and we have.
what I'm saying is if we're gonna give them this extra money, I think it's a great idea. I'd like something back.
But we should use that for leverage to tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even cheap meals. Can you give us an extra 5 or 6 per time? If we end up costing 1 or 2, I know nobody wants to waste food, but it's only 1 or 2 meals. So
So
that's,
the other thing is, on the mobile farmers market, I thought maybe we could consult with them and the senior fun bunch where they may be able to do some kind of demonstration at the senior fun bunch.
that would be good. Those
Monthly
are cool.
event. Yeah.
Those are cool. Yeah. They dress with the recipes. So that's all that I ask, is just use that as leverage.
Councilman Crummage, do you have anything?
No.
Councilman Dollinger?
Just quickly, the $1,000 that we're requesting, is that pretty much the standard we've been doing every year?
The last few years, we had done 500, but we have done $1,000 for quite some time before that. So,
Okay.
so it's definitely utilized.
Okay.
So the total amount we're gonna be taking out of the 75 is how much?
The 11.
11,250.
And the balance will go into,
The balance will be put back into the pot for all the other cities because we didn't have anybody that is able to qualify to use the rest of that money. So
interesting.
that's what ends up happening. If we're unable to use it, it goes back into the larger pot.
Never used to, just recently we started that, right?
No, well, yeah,
Because we used to be able to keep it.
That's county.
we used to be able to use it for a presumed benefit.
Right.
And then HUD came in and kind of
I remember.
inspected how everything was operating and
Yeah.
said we weren't allowed to do that anymore.
So maybe we should look for some more nonprofit local groups here that we could get them qualified so we can keep some of the money in our county.
Well, we
I mean-
can only do the 11,250 to programs,
For
right?
the programs, yeah, for service
So-
programs, it's a maximum 15%, and then the remainder has to go to another program for whatever they're doing, but they have to meet the income requirements.
What other program would we be in? What would that other program be? That we-
Or a project.
Project or
What
program.
type of project?
So I guess an example would be if one of the local nonprofits was to hold some
So-
type of meetings or
The Heritage Church was going to do the disability housing. And they were going to be able to utilize some of these funds for their project.
because they were,
Do they have actual housing that they were gonna use?
They were going to build some
And this is
housing.
gonna be put towards
This-
that.
Yeah, some of it was going to go to that project, but they didn't get their other funding, so they weren't able to use the
If in fact it did
allocation.
come, and it was gonna happen, that would have to be open up to everybody in the city.
we open it up
Well,
annually.
I mean,
every
the
year.
people that are housed, the housing project would have to be accessible for everyone in this town because that
Which
money is.
we advertise for these monies every year, so it's always open, so.
No, you're missing my point. My point is, let's suppose the church got the money and they built their deal. The units that were available would have to be available to everyone in the town, wouldn't they?
Oh, the units themselves and
Yes.
how they are utilized.
Right, because
Um,
you're using public funds.
I think that they're restricted to the income or the disabled. Yeah.
Understood,
But
but,
they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't be able to restrict them to only Escalon.
or to the church itself.
No.
No,
Okay, that's what I want to get straight. Okay, I got it.
And these funds are all oriented towards low income, right? So another, right?
yes, low income, or like Tammy was saying, if there's disability, serving seniors or disabled.
Okay.
The hard part is you have to document everything, and that's where it becomes difficult, because they ask for specific paperwork to be filled out, forms. And so when it came to the city trying to utilize this funding, for seniors, they each have to fill out a form every time they come in, and you have to get their income information, and it's a lot of,
Mhm.
so the actual groups or the nonprofits that know how to do that, and that's part of how they do it, and they're much larger, are able to do it better.
Okay,
Okay.
now do we have to give you a vote?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who wants that
I'll accept the
recommendation?
motion.
So what?
Yeah.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Let's see, where did we leave this? One more, here we go. Consider of expenditure plan for the city of Escalon year 2021-22. Home Investment Partnership, ACT Home Program. Staff.
For fiscal year 2021-2022, the city will receive an estimated allocation of $13,587 in home program funds. The city proposes to use this funds for the provision of low and moderate income housing units through gap financing or rehabilitation of eligible units. The county restarted the rehab program and is currently accepting applications. The home funds used in a gap financing program assist first-time low-income persons in making a down payment on a new home. At this time, the city's home program accounts have the following amounts. GAP currently has $19,790.50, and rehab has $19,787.50. HUD requires citizen participation. This process involves providing residents with a notice availability of the funds. This requirement is satisfied by posting notices at City Hall and the city's website. We also posted advertisements on the city's Facebook page and sent out mailers to all the local nonprofits, inviting them to an informational meeting that we also held on January 4th. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to receive comments from the public on the projects identified by staff. We recommend the city commit the estimated $13,587 in home funding for the continuation of this program, with the funds split evenly between the two programs. The city's housing element identifies the need for the city to meet its regional share of low and moderate income housing, and has the additional benefit of instilling pride of ownership in families that might not otherwise be able to afford a home. If the council approves the above recommendation, the home fund account levels for fiscal year 2021, 2022 will be GAP account $20,074.50 and the rehab account $20,071.50. Recently, the county began deobligating funds that are not spent and reobligating them to projects that are ready to move forward in other cities. The county's updated regulation allows for 3 years of funding to accumulate before deobligating it. Staff has been increasing efforts to promote these programs to residents, as Escalon has not had a GAP user since 2010 and a rehab program user since 2012. However, there is currently one rehab applicant going through the process pending approval. Staff has a page on the city website dedicated to these two programs where residents can obtain information. Staff placed the website link on the city's Facebook page, and information appears periodically in our newsletter. So once again, we're asking for a public hearing to provide any input from the community and or council, and then approval of where these monies would be placed in our GAP and rehab funds.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing. Anyone like to speak on behalf of this item or against this item, either way? Is anyone out in the phone land want to just call in or talk about it? Doesn't look like it. We're going to bring it back to the council for discussion. Gentlemen, Councilman Crummage, anything?
Nothing.
Councilman Swift?
I have no questions.
Councilman Bellinger?
I have a math question for you.
Of course.
So currently, GAP and rehab are 19,000 and change on each account. We're adding 13,000 to that. How do we only have 20,000 in each account? Did we receive those funds down below?
13,000
is split between the two, 67, almost 68 to each of the funds, right?
correct, 67.93.50 to each.
So why does it say 20,000 if you're 19? That's $300 a piece you've added to them. If we're adding, and you got 20 grand.
So, yeah, he's right. So in your first paragraph, it says our program accounts have the 19.7 and 19.787.
Which is basically 40 grand before we start adding the 13.
Oh, you know, a portion, it might have also been deobligated. If we have a portion from the previous year, from the 3 year, it gets subtracted out and then we add the money in. So we probably should have, we talked about deobligation, but didn't add how much gets subtracted. But we probably did lose an allocation of about 6,000 for each as well.
Is that a percentage annually when they deobligate them? Or is it percentage wise, or how's that come out?
The amount you get. So whatever amount we got 3 years ago
They took
for
it away.
18, 19 or whatever, they'll pull it out and put it back.
For every 3 years, unless you use it, you lose it.
Yeah, and so, yeah, so every year we essentially lose one year that wasn't spent and have it replaced with the next third year.
But this GAP program and this other program, GAP was the government assistance program. We built those units behind Taco Bell over there. That's what that was at one time.
I'm not sure how those were built.
I do.
That's what I've heard,
Yeah, it was a GAP program. The deal was you had to help build those houses. You physically had to help.
Yeah.
And then you had to keep it for so many years, and then everybody sold out and left it there for rentals. But in this GAP program here, for example, how would someone qualify for that?
It's all income based, and so.
What could they use it for? Let's get past the qualifications. Let's talk about what they'd use it for. What would they use it for?
The GAP is first time home buyers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be essentially getting into their first house. So if they needed a percentage, which would be based on their income, they would get a maximum amount for a down payment according to what their income is. And then we would give that to them to put down on the house, and then they would make their house payment accordingly.
Does that money have to be paid back?
In the past, they don't get issued that often, but when I've worked with GAP programs before, they typically do not have to be paid back so long as whoever continues to live in the house meets the income requirements. But if they were to
Are they audited?
sell it, if they wanted to sell it and buy somewhere else, then yes, the program, they would need to pay the money back.
So are they audited? How do you know at what point they're exceeding that income base?
It's, I don't believe it gets audited for whether they.
So once you
So
qualify,
I think it's once they qualify, they have to live in the house for a set number of
do
years.
we know what that is?
Probably 5.
5 years, and
Yes,
after
yeah.
5 years, it goes away.
Right,
So they did move or sell, they wouldn't have to be obligated to pay it back.
right. But if they sell prior to that, then
Then they
they
pay
would
it
have
back.
some obligation.
Okay, good. What about the other program? Is that, that's a rehab program, and that basically is for people remodeling or repairing, correct?
Correct, and it is a loan program, which tends.
It's a loan program.
It is a
What-
loan, it's not a grant. And so that's kind of been where most people are not interested in doing it. They want.
What's the interest on the loan?
assistance. It's a low interest loan. I think it just goes on, I want to say 1 to 2% is usually where it falls in.
But it has to be qualified on
They
income.
have to qualify income,
I
correct?
get it.
But most people that I do talk to, I just spoke to somebody a few weeks ago about it. And when I told them it was a loan, they weren't interested in doing it anymore. And that's typically the response we get.
So cheap of a loan, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it is conducted by the county, so you are on that wait list, and they have their staff that hires, they have contractors on a listing, they pull the permits, they do everything for you.
So the county comes in the city limits and takes care of this project.
Correct, they'll pull all the permits with us, or they have a contractor that works on their behalf and takes care of it. I mean, we've had a couple people that weren't interested with that either, like they wanted to be the ones to pick the contractor
Sure.
that does the work and stuff, so
It's
it has-
inclusive though, where you can't fool your own contractor, you have to use theirs.
I believe so, correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, they qualify them and get them, situated to where they
Sure.
have to expedite, so,
Interesting. All right.
So the first come, first serve on these funds then, pretty much,
correct.
for our citizens in this town.
Correct, and usually if we get somebody that's interested, we ask them, hey, can you move us up to the front of the list? Because we don't have very many people in town that qualify, and they usually do try to scoot us a little faster because we don't have a lot of interest in it like the other cities do. So,
Okay, any other discussion? Are we good to vote? I'll take, accept the motion.
Move on to staff's recommendation.
Second,
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Carries, no, nays not, okay, carries 4-0. All right, now we're gonna move down to communications from the council, and we'll start with Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mayor Alves. Just a couple of things. For clarification for the gentleman in the audience that spoke during Madison from the audience,
Mr. Dodge.
Mr. Dodge, if he requested an item is put on the agenda for next meeting, does that mean that's an item that can be discussed and action can be taken upon that?
Yeah, the item is on the agenda.
It's already confirmed, we're gonna do that.
If the item's on an agenda, then it can be discussed.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Also to the McHenry trees, I think that's been a good project to get rid of the sidewalk when the root's kicking up and make it easy to travel and all that stuff. But I'm not sure if we've gone far enough, because if you go further down McHenry, there's at least 50, 100 other trees that are going to eventually push up the sidewalk. And I really think that we should be proactive on this and not wait for another senior citizen or anybody to bring it up saying, I can't walk over here, I can't travel. I know right along Escalon Avenue, right across from the Heritage Church, there's a bunch of the similar trees there, and they're starting to push up all the bricks. The same thing's gonna happen. So I'm just wondering if we should take a proactive move on this and remove those trees before the situation becomes desperate. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bellinger.
I'd like to piggyback on that. Peter, I'd say that we should probably consider that at budget time to consider some money set aside for that throughout the city so that we don't have that problem. I do like that. I'd like to thank Tammy for the time she spent with us on Friday. Appreciate that and definitely helped me learn a lot more. Thank you for that. And that's about all I've got.
Councilman Swift?
Yeah, I cannot concur with Councilmember Crumming and Councilmember Bellinger more on the tree issue with that. You know, there's certain trees, certain tree types like those are pin oaks and or Sherman oaks, I forget which one the two, but either way, There are some younger ones as well, going farther down on McHenry, and they're the same type. They're not your friend, they're not the sidewalk's friend, they're beautiful trees, but horrible location. And yeah, I would really like to see if there's any way we can get proactive on that, like my fellow council members had mentioned. I think it'd be a very wise decision, so. And yeah, the only other thing is, Tammy, do everything you can with the Human Services Agency and see if we can get some leeway about the senior lunches. That'd be nice. We're doing something for them, and let's see what we can get in return. You gotta do something in return, so. And that's it.
Okay. In terms of the backstops, I think the backstops were a great idea. They look great. The only thing I would have thought about, I may would have considered is made them portable. And the reason you make them portable is a couple reasons. The one are down in the pits aren't going to get drowned with water. You can move them if you had to irrigate or if it rained too much. And the other thing is if you had a place where maybe they didn't want it, you could move it. That's the only thing I would say. I think the idea was a perfect idea, a great idea. I just wish it would have made them portable. Maybe it's not too late. We can convert them to portable. I don't know. But portable is, in those types of situations, seems to work a lot better because you never know. Things change all the time. And like, I don't like the idea of burying them in the bottom of those pits because of the water. I know it probably would last 10 or 20 years and won't be a problem. I just don't think it's what you want to do. But you know what? It is what it is. The tree, if we're going to go out and replace all these sidewalks, take all these trees out, are we going to replant trees?
We're gonna replant trees.
I'm sorry, if we're going to take the sidewalks out, where the.
If we're taking the trees out,
Yes.
we're not gonna replant.
That was my question.
Yeah,
Or not.
So how many trees are we taking out?
we haven't established anything. It was just brought up tonight.
Okay,
I think we need to be proactive about it.
so how many trees do you think there might be?
Throughout the city, pushing up sidewalks,
Yeah, any guess?
Well, that's,
hundreds.
Hundreds? That's all I know about. Okay, just curious where that's gonna come
My
from.
neighborhood, 15 years old, I have at least 3 trees I'd like to kill.
Okay, the other thing is, when we decide to plant trees, why isn't we plant trees that create these problems? Why aren't we doing a little more proactive? Why aren't we planting trees that don't have the expansion problem with the rooting system? Why aren't we putting in barriers around so that roots are forced to go down, putting white pipes that feed the roots deeper? I mean, those are things we could have done. And I don't know why we didn't do them. So I'm a little wondering why we didn't do that. But in the future, we should consider those things.
well, in the future, our focus has been in commercial areas is that they put the trees in their landscape, not in the sidewalk.
So in other words, that's what our plan is from this point on. Trees will
Well,
not be.
it has been for the last few years with.
We just had a lot left over.
Probably with a pretty good distance from that sidewalk.
Yeah, a lot of these trees that are experiencing issues are older trees that are.
Yeah, but regardless, older or not, the planning was terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was the thing with a lot of cities. I mean, if you go through other cities like Turlock and Modesto, they did the same thing. And at one point, it was like the thing to do was to put your trees along the sidewalk. And then they realized this doesn't work.
How would you not know that? I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, because like you said, you pick a certain type, you have, you know, and if it's not planted properly, you might have some issues with it.
so we
now
have to
cities are
spend more
moving
money
out of
going
that.
back and taking them out, writing them up, doing the sidewalk. It costs so much money to be wrong. We have to be right.
It was a
wrong.
trendy thing 20, 25 years ago. All landscape architects, let's put these trees in the sidewalks. Let's not worry about what kind of trees they are. Because some of those trees, like you mentioned, you could put in all the fruit barriers,
There's all kinds of things you
all
can
you
do.
want. They're never gonna, it's never gonna work because of the nature of the tree. It was a great theory. It was a bad, it just didn't work in reality. But that's fine. Yeah, and everybody's going through it. I mean, Tracy
Yeah.
several years ago was thinking about suing the architect that did one of the boulevards.
Yeah,
You know, one thing, because it's costing so much money.
it looks beautiful and everybody wants that look with it. And they don't take into account what the trees do to the ground. Yeah, they want that streetscape look. They want the shade for everybody. to be
All of that's
outside.
still doable, but I think we have to mitigate the impact, that's all. I think we were derelict in our responsibilities to mitigate that. And I think it's been going on for years and years, like you've said. I know in this town it's been done. I've seen us take out trees and put trees right back. We did, in fact, the downtown, we just put new trees down there. Is that gonna be a problem too?
Those are crepe myrtles. You don't
Okay,
want
crepe
them
myrtles
to-
do not have such an
Main Street.
invasive base.
And that's a good choice.
Yeah,
But most of the trees that you'll see in a lot of these towns, horrible choices.
okay,
But
well,
they didn't care.
let's try to be a little more cognizant of this so we don't have to deal with it later on down the road. Because nothing makes people madder to see their tax dollars being wasted and done redundant stuff. But again, Tammy, thank you for the meeting. That was enlightening for me as well. Is there anything else you guys want to say before I shut down the meeting? Okay, then. Good evening. Meeting's over.
On tree line,
All ones.